Why do companies approach you to help them with leadership development?
Most companies that approach us have attended leadership programs already. And one of the biggest challenges that they face is that they've been through the skills part of leadership development. And what we have realized over many years of doing this is that unless you start first with a mindset, a vertical leadership mindset, just doing the skills is not going to transform someone to a true leader. And that's why we have a three-phase process. The first phase is to start with a vertical leader's mindset. How does a leader need to show up? What is a vertical mindset in the first place? Then, once we inculcate that, we then move on to the second phase, and that is leadership skills, but not just leadership skills, it's leadership skills application from a vertical mindset that we did in phase one. And then we move into phase three. And the third phase is how do we sustain vertical leadership? So this is not a pop and fizzle, a flavor of the month type of process, but rather something that is actionable, that is practical, and that the organization starts to see almost immediately in action. That is the process, and that's what we have seen really, really works.
What types of challenges are these companies often experiencing, and what results do they typically realize?
Most organizations have a pretty good capacity to do strategic planning. The problem that they have is execution of that strategic plan, and so they need leaders who can execute. Really, leadership at all levels who can execute. And why is that so? Because leaders create the culture of the business by the way they behave, by the way they act. And so those leaders either create a culture which accepts mediocrity or creates a culture which accepts that good is good enough. Whereas high-performing leaders have a very high expectation that we will execute. We don't accept excuses for low performance. We expect high employee engagement. And so leadership development is really around the capacity to execute in the business and focus on delivering to the customers. So they approach us normally because they've got an execution problem.
And part of the process that we take them through is making sure that they create a structure that allows the rest of the organization to focus on the execution of that vision in a very, very clear and specific way, so that every single person in the organization has a piece of the vision, has a very clear plan in their role of responsibility and what and how they're supposed to be achieving and delivering that. This is really absolutely critical. This is part of the execution. Strategy is not difficult to come up with. Execution is the biggest issue. And what we often see is conflicting structures within organizations, where on the one hand they're expected to do this, but when they do this they're not able to fulfill this. So then they go back to this and they do this, but then they are compromising on this. So this is a conflicting structure that causes oscillation between these two structures, and that causes a lot of frustration and really saps the energy of the business.
I think the final one is often a call to action for organizations as they do their regular employee engagement surveys and they get poor results on leadership. The employees don't have the trust, the confidence in leadership. There might be conflict in teams. There might be poor relationships between managers and supervisors. Often in union environments, there's a large gap between management and the staff, and staff are quite disengaged. And so when staff are disengaged, it is nothing more than a reflection on the quality of leadership. Leadership doesn't always want to take responsibility for that, especially in a union environment where they might say, well, it's the union or it's the employees, but it's management. Leadership is totally accountable when they have a disengaged workforce. And so we get brought in after employee engagement surveys or when you can just feel there's low morale in companies.
And maybe we should talk about the results that some of our clients achieve. Got some examples?
Well, I think one immediately comes to mind here, and that's a client that we started working with, it's probably close on 2 years ago, where we started on the Leading with Influence program, which includes a strong vertical leadership. 2 years later, they are sitting in cohort groups which meet every single week. It's a huge commitment on the part of the company to apply the learning. And what the feedback I've got from them is that the culture of the business has totally shifted. Much more internal collaboration, which is a breakdown of silos, a breakdown of the up-down relationship across the organization. We've got much higher employee morale. We've got a breakdown between the management level at the senior level and the next level down. They've had much higher employee engagement survey results. They just keep telling us about the benefits that the business has had, starting off with the smallest little things, which is a change in vocabulary. They now know what vertical means and how to behave that way. And so that every single leader in the organization can hold themselves accountable to those standards.
And what is really exciting for us is when our clients give us feedback on the financial results that they're achieving, which is really a scorecard at the end of the day. When they say that, oh, this last year was the best year that we've ever had, and we say, wow, that's great. And then over the next quarter, they say, this is the best quarter that we've ever had in the business. This is exciting for us because it tells us that it's really working, not only from a feeling point of view, but from a practical, pragmatic, financial results perspective. And that is the true mark of successful organizations.